From the heart of South Asia to the crossroads of Central Asia, from the turbulent Middle East and North Africa to the power corridors of the West, where narratives collide, perspectives matter and stories connect, this is Beyond Borders. I am Omar Khalid. And of course, during the course of the show, as we always do, we'll consider and continue to decipher stories that matter to you and us in a changing world in this 21st century, stories that are extremely important for us to understand. We'll begin with the leading stories of the day, or as we call them, region lines. We start from Turkey, where discussions between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban remain inconclusive. During 18-hour-long round of negotiations, the Afghan Taliban delegation repeatedly agreed to Pakistan's logical and legitimate demand for verified and definitive action against the TTP and other terrorist outfits. Meanwhile, Pakistan has offered Bangladesh key projects, including access to Karachi Port Trust and the establishment of a knowledge corridor. The 9th Joint Economic Commission meeting that was held in Dhaka resulted in several decisions to promote bilateral economic, trade and development cooperation. Moving on to the Middle East, where the ongoing sounds of Israeli drones, artillery and explosions triggered deep trauma among Palestinians, as an Israeli attack near the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis kills at least 2 people. According to a United Nations report, approximately 83% of all structures in Gaza city are damaged. The analysis is based on satellite imagery collected on the 22nd and the 23rd of September this year. In the West, Venezuela claims it has dismantled a CIA-financed cell plotting a false flag operation on a U.S. warship deployed in the southern Caribbean, as West Washington increased pressure on Caracas by flying bombers nearby. Venezuelan authorities said they uncovered an operation targeting the USS Gravely, a guided missile destroyer that docked Sunday in Trinidad and Tobago, within filing distance of the Venezuelan mainland. And lastly, Elon Musk could leave Tesla as CEO if his proposed $1 trillion pay package is not approved. The board's chair, Robin Denholm's warning came in a letter to shareholders ahead of Tesla's November 6th annual meeting, where investors are expected to vote on the proposed package, the largest of its kind. Let's begin our program, and we'll of course begin with South Asia. The first and the most important item on this agenda is the Istanbul talks, the third round of talks between Pakistan and the Afghan Taliban that remain inconclusive to this very date. 18-hour-long talks. Despite Pakistan's deliberation, a lot of things are yet to be understood and implemented by the Afghan Taliban. We've been joined by Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua Sahab, defense analyst, to talk more on this. Sir, thank you very much to have joined us. The Afghan Taliban's bond, sir, with the Fitna al-Khawarij or the TTP sort of becomes the single largest barrier to peace between Islamabad and Kabul. I'd like to understand why the Afghan Taliban government continues to harbor, foster and shelter these terrorist outfits.
Thank you very much. In fact, in order to understand this, we have to go back into history. We have a history with Afghanistan, which includes 2 foreign interventions in which Pakistan solidly supported Afghanistan. But despite all those historical linkages and the facilitation, the Afghan government I think is overburdened by nationalist irredentism, which had been rearing its ugly head from time to time, starting from Zahir Shah's time. And we know the Dir Bajod operations also, in which Pakistan had to push back the Afghan forces. And the same Afghan nationalism, which is rearing its head and manifesting itself in the shape of claims on Pakistan's territory, is again coming to the fore. Then there are wheels within the wheels. There are overlapping interests amongst this current Afghan Taliban government. and they are not united in their thinking or their approach towards the foreign affairs and even the internal affairs. There are competing interests, and they have a ideological affinity with their non-state actors like TTP, IMU, and every non-state actor of varying stripes and hues is being given refuge by them because they have a medieval mental makeup, and they do not see the modern delicacies of statecraft in the light that the world sees. So, unfortunately, because of that, and on top of all, the Indian support to the Afghan proxies in order to bleed Pakistan is the main reason that the Afghan Taliban government is not coming on to a policy of reining in those non-state actors. And these Qatar and Turkey dialogues. These are clear indicators in which Pakistan laid out its policy and proposals with a lot of clarity, giving the evidence based upon video footage, based upon audio footage, and time with clear timelines and clear locations which could not be refuted. And even the hosts were quite amazed at the obduracy and the negativity of Afghan Taliban because whenever they agreed to draft proposal, they went back to their handlers in Kabul and Kandahar, and Kabul was speaking another language, and Kandahar was speaking another language. And I think they are under the influence of Indian, handlers who are pumping in money quite munificently for these Taliban. And this is the kind of incentive, negative incentive that the Afghan Taliban have chosen over brotherly ties with Pakistan. We know that Pakistan, under the easement rights of the British era, has given a lot of latitude by way of trade and humanitarian contacts. Even the cross border movements were relaxed, and Afghan transit trade has given them a complete window to a landlocked Afghanistan. But unfortunately, that was used for smuggling, and an ecosystem of crime and terrorism was forged. There are, of course, influential lobbies inside Pakistan also that profit by that trade, and that demand is generated inside our own markets as well. That's a fact. But the main impelling force is the Afghan greed for smuggling and getting those economic rents out of this activity. And this crime and terror nexus has spawned a complete ecosystem which tends to bypass the legal channels. And whenever Pakistan tries to regain the control through better border management and better crime control, a whole lobby which is led by Afghan Taliban and led by those Afghan uh, criminals who are benefiting by those enterprises, it starts stridently voicing its concern and manifests itself into open defiance. And this sport of TTP is also a manifestation of the same. And unfortunately, the ideological affinity that trumps statecraft, that trumps brotherly relations, that trumps normal economic and trade linkage sense. Afghanistan is to gain a lot by peace and connectivity, which
That is what I fail to understand, Brigadier Saab. Afghanistan has to gain a lot from peace and stability. But what does it have to gain by, harboring all these terrorist outfits, by destabilizing a neighborhood country that could be extremely beneficial not only to strengthen the region, but to strengthen the own country through mechanisms such as the BRI, the CPEC, and so many other mechanisms. Pakistan is ready. But Afghanistan or the Afghan Taliban refuse to even sign on the dotted line or sign anything written as far as their stopping harboring of such criminal or terrorist elements are concerned. India is a factor, I understand, you've explained, but really is India all that the Afghan Taliban are harboring for? What is the real interest behind all of this?
you see, their mindset is driven by atavism. They are a atavistic, thought process which is medieval, and a revanchism drives their policies. They couldn't care about the diplomatic niceties, connecting with the world, improving the lot of their own people. So they are unfortunately captive to a primitive mindset, and they see things only in black and white, and in which first thing is their ideological affinity, on the basis of which they came to power, and they fear that if they do not make a common cause with those who are fighting against a brotherly country like TTP, they would lose internal power game. Unfortunately, that's a very myopic and a very short-sighted approach. But who can, take issue once they are devoid of logic and complete statecraft and common sense, and they are very very good in circumventing around the logic and reason, and the blame game that they apportion, and they keep accusing others, including Pakistan, of violating the truce and violating their territory, whereas they completely neglect that their own territory is a complete habitat of terrorism. It has become a veritable hatchery, which might attract the censure of international community very soon. That is the kind of medieval thought process and a selfish ethos that is not helping them see the light of reason. And this hubris, which is born out of a misunderstood sense of their own importance, that in the past they have defied Soviet Union, they have defied the Americans, and now perhaps they can teach a lesson to Pakistan. I think.
And that is where I want to come to, Brigadier Saab. You said that they gave a lesson to the Russians, they gave a lesson to the Americans. What they are doing right now, vis-a-vis harboring these terrorist elements and destabilizing Pakistan, isn't this a continuation of their guerrilla warfare and not governance as far as the implementation of all that has been happening, and their refusal at these talks to come up to some logical conclusion or even sign on the dotted line when it comes to ending this involvement or harboring of such terrorist elements are concerned, undermining Pakistan's sovereignty and also Pakistan's sacrifices in the war on terror. What's your take on all of that?
Like I said, that they are a victim of their own hubris, their own supercilious attitude vis-a-vis Pakistan, which is wrong. And they are deriving wrong lessons out of historical facts. They should know that Afghanistan has never existed in the shape of a political entity that they so claim. And it has been conquered, ruled time and again by the likes of Persians, Greeks, Scythians, Kushans, Huns, British, and then the Sikhs. And the Sikhs, which captured their territory, the same frontier was inherited by the British, and they formalized in the shape of a Durand line, which their own Amir Abdur Rahman sanctified in the shape of a treaty. So they are oblivious of all those realities, and they are captive of a negative narrative that thrives on Afghan irredentism, and that is what is stopping them from acting rationally.
But Brigadier Sahib, then how can we bring them to the dotted line? How can we bring them to see some sense in not only stabilizing their own country, putting their country on the world map and strengthening their country, but also strengthening the region?
I think one thing Pakistan is doing very correct is it is now adopting a very straight and narrow approach. Uh, Despite being positively engaged, it has laid out its red line that look, this is where Pakistan's patience ends, and Pakistan will never compromise on its territorial sovereignty. And you cannot harbor the terrorists, and you cannot launch those terrorists into Pakistan's territory, and you cannot claim immunity from the legal strictures and the legal channels which are used for commerce, trade, and human movement. I think this is a fundamental. Why don't they go and claim the territory, and why don't they go and claim the same facilities from Central Asian states, Iran, which are also their borders, which are also their neighbors? It is simply because of the fact that Pakistan has been very indulgent of Afghans in the past, and they have misused that indulgence. Now, despite our diplomatic channels, which have done their best, uh, no reason, no diplomatic, approach has worked with them, because they have come to see Pakistan as a soft target. And this is why Pakistan now is ready to countenance their negativity and their violence through its own kinetic actions. And that is why the better border management and better border controls have been laid out as part of the interstate relations. And I think the saner elements amongst the Afghan Taliban should appreciate that. And Pakistan is a very important conduit for their commerce, also for their human security needs as well. But if they don't want to benefit their own people, if they don't want to benefit their own economy, it is their own choice. And Pakistan must proceed with firmness and consistency, and it should lay down, like it has laid down its choices and options in front of the Afghans, that they have to follow these international norms, single entry visa regime, and the proper border control mechanisms, and refuse those activities, and stop and rein in those terrorist elements which are using their territory. So unless they do so, they remain on a war path, and Pakistan would have no choice but to enter into a conflict and use all means at its disposal to clear the areas of the terrorists, even if the terrorists go and seek refuge in those sanctuaries which are inside Afghanistan. So Pakistan reserves the right, like any aggrieved entity under international law, to take actions against those entities which are operating inside Afghanistan.
In this whole scenario, when the Afghan Taliban refused to understand Pakistan's perspective, or refused to sit down and sign on the dotted line to any concrete violence-less future for the region, how important does the role of mediator countries such as Turkey, such as Qatar become, or maybe even the US in the coming days?
You see, there are so many countries, and there have been so many fora which have been involved. There was a trilateral forum in which Pakistan, China, and Afghanistan were part. There was a quadrilateral forum in which Iran was added. There was a Moscow format in which at one time United States was also there, Central Asian states were also there, Turkey and UAE, they were, and Saudi Arabia, they were as part of that as member countries. But after the Ukraine war, USA departed, and that Moscow format is still operative. I believe that there is a need for an international forum in which United States, China, and Russia, along with the Central Asian states and immediate neighbors, participate to lean on Taliban to change. But unfortunately, their approach is quite transactional, and they put one condition in these Turkiya talks, that United States should be part of these talks, and it should predicate its participation through concrete and tangible financial guarantees, which in simple words is opening the conduit of dollars again to Taliban, which I believe should not be done till the time they mend their ways and see the light of reason. Because if America becomes part of any negotiations and starts its economic support again to these Afghan Taliban, I think that will harden their stance. And instead of improving, they would further degenerate and keep playing the old games that they are playing. Yes, America needs to be part of Afghan settlement process, being a global power and seeing its history of involvement in Afghanistan. But there's a need for a common cause amongst the global powers, China, United States, and even Russia. Russia is recognized, mind you, and that is also one of its uh, attempts to counter the influence of America in Afghanistan. So if the global powers they keep playing their competitive games, then there is no hope. But if they sink their differences,
So what you mean to say, Brigadier Saab, is there is a lot of geopolitics and geostrategy also going on around this whole Afghan scenario that also leads to some kind of a pause or restrictions as far as moving forward in the right direction is concerned. That's a very important point, Brigadier Saab, and I hope that we'll delve on it later in another show. But we have to go to our second story. Stay with us, Brigadier Saab, as we go to our second story from South Asia, and that concerns the relationship between Pakistan and Bangladesh that have been developing since the last couple of months and are getting even stronger, whether it be the defense cooperation during the recent of General Sahir Shamshad Mirza, Chairman Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee, or the recent MOUs that have been signed as part of the economic cooperation between the two countries, and of course a major breakthrough as far as these relations are concerned. We continue to be joined by Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua Saab, but we've also been joined by Asif Munier. He's a rights activist, joins us from Bangladesh. Asif, thank you very much to have joined us. A pleasure to have you on board. I'd like to understand the significance of the revival of Pakistan-Bangladesh economic cooperation after two decades. How important is this at this juncture, and what are the avenues that you feel could be worked upon in the coming months and years as well to further strengthen this collaboration?
Thank you. Good to be here. I think we have to look at it from the short-term perspective to long-term perspective. Of course, it's very new and there is maybe some kind of euphoria around it because, as you mentioned, there has been a long gap in terms of the relations. But we also have to look at bilateral relations. And as you mentioned in the previous discussion about the geopolitics of South Asia, for instance, how does it play in the coming months and years? So, of course, there are some immediate gains, as you mentioned, about the sort of the economic collaboration, and there have been other MOUs that have been signed in the last few days, and maybe there's more collaboration. But we'll have to see when these are being implemented, how they're implemented, and are there sort of initial teething problems. Because these relationship has been strained over the years for a long time, but we have to just see how we sort of the win-win situation in terms of the interests of Pakistan and interests of Bangladesh, how we work around that. So the overall idea is that yes, even in Bangladesh, the feeling that yes, we need to move forward with these sort of collaborations and then kind of test the waters a little bit.
All right, that's extremely important to test the waters and to move towards avenues that could benefit both the countries. It's, as you said, a win-win situation for both the countries, and there are so many avenues that can be worked upon in the coming months and years as well to further work on strengthening the bilateral relationship and collaboration between Pakistan and Bangladesh. We've now been joined by Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi, who's an international relations expert. Dr. Saira, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saira, Pakistan, Bangladesh, relations improvement, whether it be in the economic realm or the defense realm, is something that both the peoples of both the countries are looking forward with a lot of optimism, and that brings a lot of joy to the peoples of both the countries as well to see this collaboration further foster. One of the examples is Pakistan letting Bangladesh use the Karachi port. Do you feel this is going to be a game changer for Dhaka's trade access to China, Central Asia and beyond?
Thank you very much, Omar, for inviting me. Well, I believe that, like you have mentioned, that many positive things have been happening since the ouster of the previous government led by Hasina Wajid. And this recent Pakistan's offer to Bangladesh for, using the Karachi port is very, very important. And this reflects that Pakistan's commitment to peaceful coexistence, and Pakistan's commitment to have the economic collaboration in economic ventures and economic cooperation with all the regional states, and also reflect Pakistan's position that Pakistan wants to have peaceful South Asia. So it carries a very, very considerable strategic and economic potential. For Bangladesh, this is very important because that would diversify Dhaka's trade routes and reduce its over dependence on Indian routes routes. Currently, Dhaka is using the trade routes that are limited to the maritime routes and then certain land routes via India. And those maritime routes are via Bay of Bengal. So, the use of Karachi port would diversify the Dhaka's economic potential. It would help it to get the access to the broader economic markets and to get the access to the broader supply chain. For instance, the access to the Southeast Asian nations, particularly China, then the Middle Eastern states, then via Middle Eastern states to the North African states. So I think it's a win-win situation for both of the states. While for Pakistan, I think Pakistan could act as a transit hub under the CPAC, and that would also lead to this small economic platform or economic framework would lead to the broader economic frameworks like I mentioned that BRI and BIMSTEC. So I think it's a win-win situation for both of the states.
I think a win-win situation is what the both countries need, and the both countries, it is important to foster that relation in different spheres, and that is exactly what both the governments are doing as we speak. Asif Munier, coming back to you, I'd like to also understand the importance of this newly proposed Pakistan-Bangladesh knowledge corridor. How important is this corridor going to be to transform Pakistan and Bangladesh's education and research collaboration? Do you feel both countries can also understand each other's perspective on it and learn from each other's experiences?
Definitely, and I think sometime back there was a visit from one of our advisors at the level of the minister, and there were some suggestions, and there has been this follow-up in terms of academic collaboration. I think the initial proposal was about religious education, but I think it's now expanding, or rightfully so, that it could expand a little bit beyond that, and also kind of knowledge-based collaboration, research, whether it's science, medicine. We have had some exchange before. Like I know that in Bangladesh, sometimes we've had medical students coming into Bangladesh, but the exchange wasn't sort of both ways. So if we have that, I think there will be more collaboration, and for us to a little bit, for both sides to understand a little bit more areas of collaboration, whether it's kind of, thematic areas where we could collaborate, whether it's on specific areas of research, and also access to different institutions. Like there are sort of well-known institutes in Pakistan where, our students would be interested, and vice versa, perhaps. So we'll have to explore that, and definitely opens a new avenue for research and collaboration in the academic arena.
Okay, that's a very interesting perspective, and I hope that the necessary, all these words are going to the necessary years and are making the necessary impact as well. Coming to you, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua Saab, General Sahir Shamshad Mirza Saab recently paid a visit to Bangladesh. How important, in your point of view, was this visit to Dhaka and Bangladesh's acknowledgement of Pakistan's military professionalism? Do you feel that Pakistan and Bangladesh both are gearing to build a new framework, a new era of defense collaboration and cooperation?
Yes, I do agree, because this is a new window of opportunity for both countries. For far too long, our relations have been held hostage to politics, and Pakistan, in the realm of defense collaboration, has a great deal to offer to Bangladesh. In the past, Pakistan has been training officers and enlisted men of countries like Afghanistan, Maldives, Sri Lanka, Nepal, but the Bangladeshis, they stayed out because of the Indian influence. And I think this time, because both the armies of Bangladesh and Pakistan, they share the same DNA, and there is a great possibility of collaboration. We just saw one of the lady cadets which passed out during the recently held passing out parade in Pakistan Military Academy. And such like linkages go a long way in fostering a culture of cooperation between the two countries, because the same uh, alumni, they later on they rise to positions of authority, and that helps both countries. Then Pakistan can offer a lot in defense hardware, like the Air Force jets, JF-17s. They have evinced some interest, Bangladesh, and also for small arms and the drone technology, unmanned aerial platforms for surveillance. And I think these are the areas in which there is a great scope for collaboration. Training, hardware, and the safety and security reconnaissance means those are the very clear areas in which both countries can complement the strengths of each other. And Pakistan would have a foothold in Bangladesh because Indian influence was so pervasive that there was time that they used to even influence the selection, promotions, and postings of senior military leadership in Bangladesh under Sheikh Hasina's regime. So all that is past. This is a new beginning, and Bangladesh can benefit a lot by defense collaboration. It can give its defense forces the necessary heft to stand up to Indian browbeating, which off and on it keeps on doing with all the neighbors.
All right, thank you so very much for your very eminent point of view and opinion. Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua, Saab Defense Analyst, joining us and discussing, of course, two very important topics with us. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us, and thank you very much for your input. We'll come to Asif Munier now. Asif, so many things that are happening as far as Pakistan and Bangladesh is concerned: defense collaboration, economic collaboration, education collaboration, halal trade MOU that has been signed, which is a huge, huge sector, a 3 trillion global halal economy. And how do you see the future of all of these new avenues of collaboration that have begun between the two countries, and what are your expectations from this collaboration?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, so many opportunities, but again, we'll have to sort of, as I mentioned before, that, go beyond the stage of euphoria and have more practical kind of ways of working on it. Before coming to the halal trade, I just wanted to add one thing on the defense side. I think there's sort of scope for collaboration in terms of the strategic sort of discussion or the strategic think tanks. There's one in Bangladesh, which is called the Bangladesh International Institute of Strategic Studies, BIS, and there's National Defense College. And I've been sort of in there for different kind of discussions for lectures, giving lectures on different issues, even regional geopolitical issues. And there are, like in NDC, the National Defense College, there are international, participants from the armed forces of the different countries, even from different parts of the world. But I don't remember seeing from Pakistan. So I think there's more scope now for that. And again, for any kind of strategic institutes that are in Pakistan, there'll be more sort of exchange in terms of strategic thinking and the academia in that sense. Coming back to the halal trade issue, I think as far as I see in Bangladesh, I mean, maybe the Pakistan experience can help Bangladesh to strategize on this. I don't come from an economic background or trade background, but what I've understood in recent times that this is an area that we want to grow, but we haven't so far. So maybe the collaboration can help with that and sort of capture certain markets. And we have sort of different kind of frozen food products that sometimes are targeting other parts of the world, not necessarily the Muslim world or the the halal sort of consumption. But even the diaspora, Bangladeshi diaspora, who know certain Bangladeshi brands, they would be willing to access that. But that's not a very big market in that sense. Bangladesh doesn't have a very big diaspora across the world. So if it wants to capture, I think they used to strategize on that. Again, the business leaders, if they collectively discuss on that, but not just Pakistan and Bangladesh, maybe other actors who are already ahead in the trade.
Other countries in the Muslim world, the SAARC countries as well could be part of it. And I think, we can only expand it further. But, so many avenues. And I'm so happy to see this collaboration happening, Asif, and I hope that you and your fellow brethren are as well, because we feel connected, and that is what we see, this connection further getting strengthened through these collaborations. Thank you very much, Asif Munier, to have joined us all the way from Bangladesh and to have given your eminent point of view. Let's now take you to the Middle East and North Africa. A lot of destruction has been caused by the Israeli war in Palestine. More than 2 years have passed, and recently a report by UNOSAT has also unearthed more troubling news on that front. More in this report.
A new United Nations report has revealed catastrophic levels of destruction in Gaza City. It was revealed in the latest assessment by the United Nations Satellite Center. The report, based on high-resolution satellite imagery from 22 to 23 September 2025, shows that nearly 83% of all structures in Gaza City have been damaged amid the ongoing conflict. The analysis identified more than 17,700 destroyed and over 4,300 severely damaged structures, totaling 41,221 affected buildings. This represents a 7% increase in total damage since the previous assessment on July 8, 2025, with a 36% surge in completely destroyed structures, reflecting the intensifying devastation across the city. According to estimates by SMC partners, an estimated 81,159 housing units have been damaged, marking a 16% rise since July and displacing around 500,000 people. The neighborhoods of Zaytown and At Turkmen, Ijdida were among the hardest hit, recording 2,568 and 1,440 newly affected structures, respectively. While UNOSAT notes that the findings are preliminary and pending field verification, the assessment underscores the deepening humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza City, where vast residential zones, public infrastructure, and essential services lie in ruins, compounding the suffering of hundreds of thousands of displaced civilians.
On all of these hundreds and thousands of displaced civilians is the continuity of the barbarities by Israel with every passing day, despite the ceasefire agreement that has been signed by it. Dr. Saira Nawaz Abbasi continues to join us in the studio. Dr. Saira, how can Israel justify its military campaign when the UN satellite data already is showing, and this report also further cements the fact that 83% of the Gaza city now lies in ruins, and of course almost 1 million people have been displaced so far?
Israel frames it as an act of self-defense, So, I mean, for the act of self-defense, even in that way, is not justifiable. So, they argue that the decisive military actions are necessary to dismantle the Hamas or militants in presence in the urban areas, and so that's why they are taking the necessary action in order to have the self-defense. But even if the state has a right to the self-defense, it has to be bounded by the obligations to protect and to minimize the civilian harm, and to give the access of humanitarian aid to the people.
When has Israel, Dr. Saira, ever adhered in the last 2 years plus to any of the United Nations resolution or even suggestion that was given?
Yes. Unfortunately, it all seems a joke now. The Board of Peace and everything.
I
mean, the ceasefire is not actually in true letter and spirit implemented by the Israeli forces. And when it was being signed, the Israel has a greater plans. The Israel has the greater Israel plans.
It has always had this since decades.
So, yes. So that would not stop itself from the atrocities it had been committing from the day first. But I think the rationale they are using is also, I think, the documentary that you have shown.
The UNOSAT report that has
UNOSAT
been
report
released.
has unveiled the empirical evidence is there, which is undermining and which is I think weakening the stance of the Israeli forces and the Israeli government led by the Netanyahu, which shows that it would further provoke the people of the Gaza and to further of course when there are kind of humilities that people have to suffer.
In all of these humilities, I mean, you're talking of the destruction of 83% of infrastructure. Of this 83%, 36% has been destroyed in the last 2 months alone. What kind of legal defense now remains for Israel to justify itself? I mean, I really fail to understand, it defies logic to me.
I think these kind of atrocities and the silence of the world shows that the weakening of the international humanitarian law, all the conventions, the United Nations Security Council, they are in the paralysis. And unfortunately, what precedent that has been set by the Israelis and the silence of the international community is that the geopolitics and the alliances are more important than any international law, any international organization, and any kind of international humanitarian law. So yes, that's very, very unfortunate.
Can the international audience or the countries that matter continue to watch in silence?
Like I said, that the alliances are more important for the states and the leaders over the humanitarian issues. All the efforts by the European
the same thing happens in Ukraine, I mean, they are up in arms, but when even worse things are happening in Palestine, they don't bat an eyelid.
Unfortunately, that is what the world order currently, which is in the demise, I could see, which is also termed by many people the world disorder. I think these are the things which are there. Unfortunately, international hypocrisy is there, where again the most powerful states are the most sovereign states and the less powerful states are the less sovereign states. So theoretically and practically we have been seeing that through the lens of what Israel is doing. So America is of course providing it the board of peace under the shadow of that, and Israel, unfortunately the Israelis are hand picking everything, that who will control whom. Israel will control everything, who will get the access to the Gaza under the newly established
They have already said no to Turkey, for example.
So for that matter, I mean, this is not then the peacekeeping issue.
This is peace or future as per the Israeli terms and conditions, as per what they want and what they don't want. Dr. Sahar, last question as far as this is concerned. People are also facing, I mean, there is also already the danger of the brutalities, the killings, the lack of food, water and medicine that is still present as we speak, despite the fact that it has been said that the necessary food and aid should come, but that isn't happening. Then the displacement, to add to that, the misery of the people, and also the fact that there is a grave danger of 66,000 tons of unexploded ordnance in Gaza, which could explode at any time, at any place, and cause further damage to people's lives, people's property, and so on and so forth. What can be done in your point of view? Because the UN says it's going to take 30 years for all of this or 66,000 tons to be removed.
That also shows, the hastily done Board of Peace plan. There is no peace plan, there is no proper plan given that what would be the post-conflict situation in the Gaza. However, I think international, under the international investigation led by the UN mandate, they should have the team, EOD teams, who should work for, educating people as well as dismantling that contamination that is present in the Gaza. This should be done only, but I think nobody is interested to save the life of the Gazans. They are not interested
life
at all.
Life does not matter. When it comes to certain region, the lives of people do not matter at all.
Yes.
But the lives of others do matter in other perspectives and other regions. Thank you very much, Dr. Nawaz Abbasi, to have joined us. Kindly stay with us till we finish the show. Another couple of minutes to go. Let's take you now to the West. The first story concerns the rising tensions. They have already been rising between the US and the Venezuela. They've also been rising between the US and Colombia. But between the US and Venezuela, it's over an alleged CIA plot. Venezuela has accused the US of orchestrating a false flag operation to justify military escalation in the Caribbean, claiming to have dismantled a CIA finance cell that planned to attack the USS Gravely, which is the USS destroyer docked in Trinidad and Tobago. Caracas denounced the ship's arrival as a provocation and suspended a gas deal with Trinidad, accusing its prime minister of turning the island nation into a launchpad for the aggression by the Americans. This dispute comes amid a wide array of conflicts between the US and Venezuela. Whether they will be able to come to some kind of resolution, only time will tell. Our last story concerning the West concerns Elon Musk. Elon Musk, we all know, he heads X, he also heads Tesla, but there's a little question mark when it comes to his future at Tesla, because what he is doing, he is asking for a $1 trillion deal as the CEO of Tesla. Could you have imagined anybody asking for that much amount of money as the CEO of any company across the world? Anyways, this is what Tesla chair, this is what Elon Musk says. If he's not paid this amount, he's going to quit Tesla. Tesla board chair Robin Denham has warned shareholders that Elon Musk could step down as CEO if they reject his proposed $1 trillion performance-based pay package, which is the largest in corporate history. Whether that deal goes through is for all of us to see in the next couple of days, but if it does, this will set a new precedent as far as what a CEO earns. Anyways, this was a very interesting story, so we thought we'd end today's show with this. Brings us, ladies and gentlemen, to the end of today's Beyond Borders. It has been an interesting journey today as well as it is every day. What I infer from this is that the powers that be, whether they be in Afghanistan, in the US, or in other parts, in Israel, need to give peace a chance. That is extremely important. Peace needs to be given a chance so that the people across the world can foster a better future for their next generations. Think on that. Allah Hafiz.